Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Mexi here once again, and I am back for the likes of the Mexi Toys videos once again. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Piglet's Big Game for the Game Boy Advance. So yeah, that's what I can say about this. So last time, we've essentially did manage to win for those previous dreams again, except this time we did somehow manage to able to tackle through bravest of them all challenges, and these are super duper easy compared to the fonts of how it does on the console version, so as a result, they're really not much of a challenge to me though. So because of this though, I have no idea why I managed able to actually go for this stuff, aside from bragging rights I guess. So today for this video is going to be the finale in terms of Piglet's Big Game for the Game Boy Advance, and because of that we're going to be hit on to the fonts of the final level in the game, known as Flooded Woods, just like the console version. Piglet's friends did not see the flood rising, and the 100-acre wood would soon be covered by water. Gathering all his courage, Piglet decided he had to rescue his friends. But the forest was dark and surely full of dangers. Now, straight to the point when it comes to this particular level is that, unlike the fonts of how it does on the console version of the game, that basically in the console version of the game, while you still need to be able to rescue Pooh and his friends by simply able to take care of the forms of Heffalumps and Woozles and stuff like that, this particular version is actually a full-fledged level. So because of this though, it actually encourages you to able to do a lot of exploration, and on top of that, more backtracking involved, so meaning about the fact that you have to able to get a lot of courageness to able to actually figure out where you're supposed to go. So either way though, because chances are though about the fact the matter is though, despite the fact that we haven't exactly got the actual background music for some reason in this level, because all it shows is just the fonts of the rain sound effects, and that's all there is to it. So because of this though, yeah, I was not expecting to see how this particular level is actually full-fledged out level compared to the fonts of how it does it on the console version, that usually in the console version is pretty short, especially concerning about the fact that the only thing you can do on the console version is by simply you have to take care of the forms of not every single Heffalumps and Woozles, but some of them are, like basic Heffalump and B Heffalump or Heffalump B, and also with the forms of hide-and-seek Woozle. Well, usually you can't able to actually deal with the forms of hide-and-seek Woozle, because you can just simply able to actually encounter him by simply able to actually send a memory book to Owl and all that stuff, and that is by far the easiest friend to rescue, because obviously it's self-explanatory. And truth be told though about the fact that, yeah, if you manage able to let Piglet's friends get scared by any of those Heffalumps and Woozles in the console version, obviously you have to start all over again in the process of being like, you know, always have to go back to the first section, because obviously it contains 3 sections. So either way though, I'm curious to see about the fact that on the Game Boy Advance version, I wonder if we might as well able to come across into Granosaurus and stuff like that. Well, at least I'm hoping so anyway, because, well, relatively speaking, in the console version, despite it was actually pretty much a joke as the actual final boss as far as this is concerned. So either way though, that might be saying something. So anyways, let's pick up this particular ladder rig right here, so we can able to actually just go ahead and you know, managed able to meet up with Owl. So either way though, and I'm pretty sure about the fact that, well, unlike the console version, yeah, there's no 3 sections you have to deal with. So again, as I mentioned this before, this is basically a full-fledged level. So either way, seems kind of weird, those snails are actually blocking our progress right there, which I know it sounds a bit crazy for saying that, but something tells me we do need to able to pick up something. So either way, so, and obviously the main objective in this entire level plays pretty much exactly the same as the forms of how it does on the console version. Like, you still need to able to rescue Pooh and his friends and stuff like that, even though that despite we only did manage to win through 4 dreams in this version, which are usually for Pooh, Roo, and Eeyore and Rabbit, but not so much Owl and Tigger, despite the fact on the console version that basically though you can able to actually experience Owl's dream and Tigger's dream. And speaking of Owl, there he is right there, and I've no idea what's up with the carpet as an item. And also, not to mention though, you can still able to actually get those cookies in this particular world. So relatively speaking though, just to ensure you might able to actually get into the point where you get into the last stretch, in terms of the forms of trying to get the brave face. Now, those of you probably wondering, how come I actually ignored that brave face factory luggage, as you can tell? The reason being for this is because I somehow accidentally managed able to get myself the final brave face during the course of an EO stream by complete accident while I was trying to go through the actual bravest of them all challenges. And basically what happens is, I did somehow manage to experience this on my own time for a bit, and what happens was though, if you dare manage to get yourselves another brave factory face, or in some cases another brave face, while simply the actual cost of it though, you can only able to get the actual brave face for free. But I would not recommend doing that, because, for one noticeable thing, obviously about the fact it will cause a large glitch that you can able to potentially try and get yourselves a soft locked, and then that way you won't be able to progress to the actual battle system. So because of this though, yeah, because as a result of that kind of stuff though, that's how I essentially am going to be ignoring that particular last brave face thing as far as this is concerned. Despite the game tells me it might actually cost for free, but I'm actually going to be able to skip that, as I mentioned this before, because it actually cost me to able to get into a soft lock mode, which at one point, if you dare manage to actually go into the combat mode, then basically that was about the fact that, well, the button props will not show up. I'm guessing it's probably because of the forms of the actual spacing of the actual button props and stuff like that, because relatively speaking though, I think something tells me with all 8 button combinations might be enough, so... Okay, that's a bit weird. That we actually place the carpet right onto the thorns, which... Either way though, that seems kind of strange. So... Anyway, and I believe something tells me we must be able to actually solve quite a few puzzles here and there. So as a result though, as you can tell, that we've already rescued Al at first glance, which, still, he's pretty easy to able to rescue at first, which, gee, no wonder why, similar to the console version, always go in for first, because obviously he was probably the easiest friend to rescue, so... Anyway, so let's just go ahead and solve this little puzzle right here, so we can potentially try to able to get something in the process, so... Yeah, that's as far as I can say about it. I will admit though right away is about the fact that the actual music in this particular world feels a bit overly dramatic, well, anticlimactic way I should say, and because of that though, it just all it gets is just rain, and that's all there is to it, so... Nothing more, but because of how the fact that, well, it's just because of the handheld's limitations, so... Anyways, and something tells me we will get ourselves a crank. So, relatively speaking, this will be the final time we're going to be able to actually pick up some of these items as item inventory system. So as a result of that kind of stuff though, because, you know, this is the final level in the game, on the Game Boy Advance version anyway. So relatively speaking, everything else will be pretty much accounted for. I was very surprised about the fact that in this version in particular, thank God it does not contain one of my least favorite enemies in the game, which are jackpot heffalumps, because you know how the fact that I've already pointed things out, since on the console version of that particular playthrough, that you do realize that jackpot heffalumps are basically the most luck-based enemies to deal with, because obviously with the forms of that particular question marks and stuff like that, which I'm happy to say that the Game Boy Advance version does not contain any of those things, thank goodness. So... And also, short things worth noting for is about the fact that I was also very surprised about this as well, that we've never actually come across into ourselves tuber heffalumps in this version either, and on top of all that stuff though, with the forms of mirror Worsel as well, because again, with the forms of the handheld's limitations. So, in fact, I'll give you my biggest massive criticism with this particular version of the game, once we're done with the forms of this entire playthrough itself. So, because of this though, oh boy, something tells me we need to able to activate certain switches in order able to progress. Well, at least luckily we can able to get ourselves this particular lettuce right there. So we can able to actually... Oh, wait a second, that could be used for the snails that has been blocked off our path. So we can probably deal with that. So, yeah, we can able to pick this up. Yep, the lettuce indeed. So... So yeah, a few things I want to explain for this point today, and that is that, well, today's date, of course, is the 27th of April today, in this case in 2023 today. Naturally speaking, we've only just got roughly about 15 days to go until The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom will be finally going to be releasing on the Nintendo Switch. And speaking of that game though, is about the fact that I'm pretty sure that certain players out there have already experienced the game as in a preview demo. So as a result of that kind of stuff though, well, usually relatively speaking, for what I've seen the gameplay footage of it so far, it's basically Breath of the Wild 2.0 because of the forms of how the sound effects are actually reused from the likes of the forms of Breath of the Wild. Now on top of that, the actual game over screen feels very similar to Breath of the Wild. And finally, most notably, is about the fact that the actual play control plays pretty much exactly the same as Breath of the Wild, basically. Although, I will admit though right away that I think that is actually a massive improvement, at least what some players encounter with during the forms of the actual preview of The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. They say that the actual menu UI is actually a massive improvement over the likes of Breath of the Wild. Like, for instance, about the fact that I'm pretty certain that most people complain about the forms of how the fact that, well, navigating through menus is a bit of annoying at times during the forms of in Breath of the Wild, whenever you try to go ahead and scroll through, like, you know, with weapons, as well as armor, and especially noticeable with the forms of materials and key items as a result. Well, I think, for what I've seen it anyway, they've managed able to fix something. Like, for instance, it's no longer going to be restricted onto the forms of the right analog stick to able to navigate certain menus and stuff like that. So instead, the actual navigation menus, during the forms of the actual exact same catalog, well, usually for the sake of time anyway, that it's now been replaced as in one of those internet scroll, you know, vertical stuff like that. And also, to navigate any menus this time is by pressing L and R this time. So, at the very least, that's that. Because unlike the forms of how it does it on Breath of the Wild, that basically though you were able to actually activate the adventure log, as well as the forms of the system settings. And that's basically all there is to say when it comes to that huge comparison between not only Breath of the Wild, but also with Tears of the Kingdom as well. Now, I'm very happy about that particular improvement all in all. Well, don't get me wrong, I still managed able to still really enjoy Breath of the Wild, even though I did manage to complete the main story. While I still need able to touch upon the DLC stuff, potentially speaking, because after all, I've already got myself full of my 30 heart containers, because I think that'll be enough to able to survive. Although I was expecting if I was trying to go ahead and trying to able to fill up my stamina meter, but personally I prefer the heart containers over a bit more than the likes of the stamina meter, because obviously I just want to able to survive throughout the majority of the adventure. So either way, when it comes to playing the game anyway, so either way, let's just go ahead and get rid of those basic walls all right here. Now, I think suffice to say that this will be the last time we're going to be seeing these enemies. Well, to be more specifically though, I'm not exactly sure if this version of the game does manage to able to have themselves the bravest of them all challenge in this level. And if it does, then, well, this is a perfect example of why that I think this particular video is going to be pretty lengthy as far as this is concerned. Although, we'll point things out whenever we get into that. So, either way, let's just shove this little, vegetable crates here, so we could... Oh, of course, we do need to activate those switches again. So, yeah, and as far as I'm aware about the fact that I'm really looking forward to see how the sky portion of the game actually plays out to be. Although, for what I've noticed something right from the start though, is that I believe there are some cooking segments once again, although it plays pretty much exactly the same, with one major differences this time, than what I've noticed on the actual gameplay preview. Well, mind you, we're not going to go into major spoilers just yet though, because obviously about the fact that the game itself wasn't even out yet until 15 days before. So, relatively speaking though, about the fact that there's actually a new feature this time, that it actually features a recipe, ingredients. So, as a result, it makes things a bit more easier to able to cook something this time. So, at the very least, that's that. And also, I just realized something on the actual gameplay preview for certain, videos out there, that, it seems that we're no longer gonna have to able to utilize the Sheikah Slate from the likes of the forms within Breath of the Wild. So, yeah, I'm not exactly sure how that's been replaced, but either way, though, I'm sure we'll find things out until the game finally comes out on the 12th of May. So, Still, thank goodness, no delay or anything else like that, because if it delays again, it'll tick off a lot of people, especially concerning with a lot of Zelda fans alike as well. So either way, I suffice to say, although we might as well be back on there in a moment, because now we actually got ourselves a shovel, so that means we can now able to actually dig up a lot of dirt. So, and of course, before we get into that though, we need to escape this particular section. So, and I think something tells me I think I did somehow solve this, especially because I can able to easily escape for this particular section. At least I hope so anyway. Oh, really? Okay, that's fine. At least I might be fine with that particular gate has been opened, so... Yeah, this particular level is going to be quite of a lengthy experience, especially because not only do you have to deal with a lot of backtracking involved, but also straight to the point that, you know, unlike the console version, like I said before, this level is going to be, probably it's the longest level in the entire game so far. At least specifically the Game Boy Advance version, as a matter of fact. So, anyways, let's activate the shovel to dig up some dirt, and we can now proceed to the next section. And of course, while simply encountering some of those heffalumps and wurzels there, so either way though, that might be saying something, so... And I believe we actually come across into a lunchbox, so... Not exactly sure why that's there. But anyways, let's just go ahead and continue proceeding for this point, and... Well, we can able to get rid of this basic heffalump right here. And also, something's worth noting for is about the fact that with that particular brave face right there, as we've already learned, I can assure you that was actually based off from the likes of the forms of whenever you try to encounter hide-and-seek wurzels on the console version for the first time. Yeah, that brave face right there, as you saw, that's actually based off of when you encounter, you know, hide-and-seek wurzels for the first time, so... And like I mentioned this before, that getting brave faces is mandatory if you want to finish the game, because otherwise, if you don't manage to obtain as many of those brave faces as you can, then you're not going to proceed, because otherwise you have to able to spend most of your time trying to able to search upon, you know, cookies and stuff like that. Speaking of cookies though, it's about the fact that one thing I should probably also notice is that how come I'm actually skipping over quite a few of those cookies, if you're probably wondering. Well, as I mentioned this before about the fact that ever since in the last video, like, you know, with the forms of bravest of them all challenges I've already done, well, as it turns out, about the fact that those cookie locations do somehow respawn every time whenever you manage to able to completely done with certain things, or something like that. Even though it's a bit tricky to explain, because I know for a fact it's been about 2 days ago since we've actually last played this game, because after all, I could assure you that, possibly, relatively speaking, that Tiana, she might able to actually finish up the forms of Megalore Albalog until whenever we get to the forms of Artifact until this coming Friday. So either way, specifically Friday the 28th. So, anyways, let's just go ahead and continue for this point, and we do need to able to solve once again that particular switch puzzle, so that way we can able to rescue Rue. So, and I do notice right from the start though, there's a lot of lag going on, which as a result, it might be something to do with like, oh, I don't know, probably emulation I suppose. But as far as I just want to point things out right away, it's a good thing I'm probably not going to get the physical copy of this game on the Game Boy Advance version, because nowadays they're sending us a lot of fake cartridges nowadays. And on top of that, I just felt like that at the end of the day, well, at least I thought so anyway, I feel like the console version is definitely a little bit more superior in my opinion. Although, you can still able to experience this game on the go, but it does have a lot of drawbacks in this version compared to the forms of how it does on the console version of the game, at least in my opinion. Especially concerning about the fact that, well, it's kind of a shame that this game doesn't have a save system, because you have to rely on the password feature, which I know for a fact that a lot of games attempt to do that, for the sake of the forms of the Game Boy Advance games, at least to be more specifically, like movie tie-in games or something like that, or especially noticeable with TV show tie-in games. Like, for instance, I know there's a lot of Game Boy Advance games that doesn't usually have the save system, because you have to rely on the password features. Like, for instance, for example, there is Finding Nemo on the Game Boy Advance, which I did somehow manage to play that game long time ago, but I couldn't get far into it though, just because of the forms of that stupid password feature. And on top of that, The Incredibles, and especially noticeable with Winnie the Pooh's Rumbly Tumbly Adventure as well. So relatively speaking though, I just really don't like the fact that every time if you switch off the game, and then you realize that as soon as you're able to continue your progress and stuff like that, and then you go back to it, every progress is gone. And then you have to rely on the passwords, and as a result, it does feel a bit complicated, at least to me anyway though, in regards to the forms of trying to utilize the password feature. Like, I totally get it with the forms of the shapes and colors, but it just easily lost track of myself. Oh, and there's also another one of those games that does have a password feature on the Game Boy Advance version of certain games, like, for instance, SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom on the Game Boy Advance version, and same applies with the forms of, I would say, Revenge of the Flying Dutchman, and as well as the SpongeBob SquarePants movie on the Game Boy Advance version as well. Like, it just feels a bit meh to me, because I prefer like playing games on the Game Boy Advance that has like a backup save battery and stuff like that. Like, for instance, about the fact that with every single Mario games, that it does have the forms of the actual save battery and stuff like that. Well, apart from that particular couple of exceptions though, mind you, like for instance, one of those classic NES games ported over to the Game Boy Advance and all that stuff. So, but either way though, that's what I can really able to say about this, so... Anyway, so there's another thing I should probably explain about this as well, is that for those of you who lived in Japan, that, I can assure you it already came out just recently in Japan or something like that, but I think I should probably let Tiana will mention more about it until when she goes back on to, you know what I mean, Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe for sure. So either way, oh, and something's worth noting for is that one of those Nickelodeon shows called The Mighty Bee, that I definitely heard about it back in the day, but it's been donkey's years since I actually last seen that particular Nickelodeon show, since during the forms of in my younger age and stuff like that. Well, because of this though, that show has been out for about 15 years ago. Like, gee, time flies, you know? Oh, and by the way, that's what happens if you manage to able to let Tennis Woolsall decide to able to, like, do that special effect on you. Like, for instance, that, yeah, they did somehow switched over one of your button combinations, just like the forms of how it does on the console version for sure. So, yeah, nothing different from there, aside from the forms of the name, so... And also, short things worth noting for is about the fact that there was actually that particular moment where I found it was quite shocking and surprising at the same time, that we actually gonna get ourselves a Totally Spies or Totally Spies game is going to be on its way from the likes of the forms of, I would possibly saying about the forms of other consoles like PlayStation 4 or Xbox Series X or Xbox One or PlayStation 5, and heck, even it might also include the Switch version as well. Now I can assure you, it might be planned to be released until next year in 2024, so I was not to see that coming, especially concerning about the fact that, well, despite the fact that I haven't exactly watched Totally Spies in my younger age, because I'm more referring to as, like, Disney stuff back in the day, and especially noticeable that I've managed to constantly watching, you know, the SpongeBob SquarePants show, like, back in the forms of in 2009 and 2010, because obviously with how the fact that that particular show has been out for 10 years back in the day, during the forms of in 2009, and all that stuff. And speaking of which though, is about the fact that I can assure you until next year, that particular show is going to be 25 next year. At least for SpongeBob SquarePants anyway. So either way though, I'm curious to know what's going to be planned for that. Now, for I've heard about the fact that they'll be making another movie out of it, but I'm not exactly sure what the focus is going to be. So, I'm curious and puzzled about this, so either way though, yeah, that's what I can really say about this. And speaking of such, we've met up with Eeyore, so yeah, we can able to actually hopefully try to rescue him by taking a ride on the umbrella, or an umbrella as far as what I meant to say, because remember, and with next to the vowel word or anything else like that will totally make sense, so... Anyways, let's get rid of this road sweep heffalump there. And, of course, just like the console version, he will cover up the actual button combinations. But honestly, I found this to be extremely easy to see, because obviously about the fact that it does not cover up everything, because I can still technically see the actual button combinations. So I'm not exactly sure how do I point things out for this point, but either way, let's just go ahead and guide Piglet with an umbrella to go to this point, and we're able to actually knock this thing over, so that way we can now go across. And now we've actually rescued Eeyore, so the next friend we need to rescue is Rabbit, so... And before we get onto that though, there's a kettle, so now we can able to actually just melt something in the process, so... And also I just realized that one of those enemies do appear out of nowhere, which I think is probably because I haven't exactly utilized the actual level scrolling system, just because I somewhat rarely used and stuff like that. So either way, there goes the bee-hevel lump right there, so we're able to get that potion. But anyway, oh yeah, I should also mention about this as well, that so far anyway, when it comes to the Mario Kart Tour, despite I'm still pretty much going back into that game at this point nowadays, because obviously I'm still waiting for, you know, Wave 5 to be released, although, usually relatively speaking though, it will still be planned to be released until sometime in summer, which I'm hoping anyway, because obviously I'm just haven't got back to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe for some time, especially concerning about the fact that at this point in time I've recently finished up with the forms of the main story, in terms of the forms of Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity recently, and overall I had a really good time with the game so far, especially concerning about the fact that, well, all needs to complete left now is of course, some post-game content on my own time, and on top of that with the forms of DLC expansion stories, and that can be also applies on the majority of the DLC stuff from the likes of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and then, yeah, I'm curious to know about the fact that until in the future, that maybe potentially that Tears of the Kingdom might also get DLC treatment as well. At least I'm hoping so anyway, because obviously that when it comes to like, you know, the Breath of the Wild universe, when it comes to the Zelda timeline, it seems that we keep on getting DLC related to the forms of the Breath of the Wild universe, which I think is actually pretty swell if I have to say so for myself. So anyways, let's go ahead and grab ourselves an oil can. So that could be potentially we can able to try to deal with the forms of something a bit more of a rusty gate. So I can assure you at that one point. But again, it's been a, you know, 2 days ago since we've actually last played this game, and I'm hoping we can able to finish this game and during before May is approaching. And on top of all that stuff though, we just, you know what I'm saying. So either way though, that's all I can say about this. So I don't think we can able to do anything in here at this point, because we do need to get one of those items. The lunchbox is not going to do anything, or an oil can is not going to do anything either, so we have to able to figure out a different way. So, oh boy, you see what I mean about the fact that this is the reason why it took so long to able to actually get this video running, especially because of this level's case. So, but again, it has a lot of emphasis on backtracking involved as well, so yeah, don't expect things too much about it. Anyway, so let's just go ahead and go back for a little bit. I'm pretty sure with that particular room on the right, I think that might be something to do with, like, I don't know, the water, I guess? Well, I couldn't pay attention to that at all, because I was getting distracted by the forms of what the heck am I supposed to be going next, so... Because, yeah, there's going to be a lot of times I have to do all that stuff, especially because, well, relatively speaking, that's what I can say about this. Of course, this will actually lead me back onto the exactly same location as before, you know, with the actual, like, this very, very confusing switch, thing itself right there, and, yeah, something tells me I have to go back here, so... Oh boy, how can I possibly expect how this is going? By the way, there's something I want to classify for something. I love the fact that in the actual the map system, as you can tell, that the actual shape of the handheld thing right there is almost like the entire shape of the Game Boy Advance. Well, to be more specifically, the original Game Boy Advance model, which I found was actually quite of a cool touch, especially concerning that we actually see the L and R stones as representing the forms of L and R buttons, and as well as from that though, with the forms of the cookie counter as well as the potion counter represents start and select buttons, and on top of that with the actual map which actually resembles the actual screen of the Game Boy Advance. And the only time exception of this, of course, is the forms of A and B buttons, along with the forms of the D-pad. So, yeah, I almost thought to myself that I could wish I was just able to actually have extra amount of details onto this though, but oh well, no big deal. I have no idea why I somehow managed to questioning that, so... Anyway, so the next thing I want to explain is that at this point in time, that we actually come across into ourselves some Super Mario game sales, so far anyway. At least specifically until right now, until the 4th of May, in this case exactly the same day as Star Wars Day. So for instance, about the fact that currently right now, that 4 of those Mario games are Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Super Mario Odyssey, New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, and finally Captain Toad Treasure Tracker. I can assure you that at this point they're now on 33% off. Well, despite the fact that I already got those games physically, mind you, but if you really want able to give those games a chance on digital download versions, well, by all means, you can able to actually get those games in a kind of a cheaper price, as in, at the moment, £33.29 as for right now. Well, because it was originally retailed for £50, at least for 3 games, which are Super Mario Odyssey, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and especially noticeable with New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe. The only exception is, of course, the Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, surprisingly, because in Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, it actually cost about £24.49 so far, at least for 33% off discounted price, and because that game was originally costed for about £34.99, so yeah, it seems like a pretty good bargain. Well, assuming of course if you really want to get the special episode DLC if you wanted to, so yeah, be my guest I suppose. So either way, oh, and something's worth noting for is about the fact that, well, I'm happy to report, is about the fact that recently, during the course of any forms of not only today, but also with yesterday as well. For yesterday, happy 4th anniversary of the release of Avengers Endgame. In this case, the final film. Well, technically it's not the final film, during the forms of in Phase 3, because that honor goes to Spider-Man Far From Home. So as a result, yeah, looking back on the forms of Avengers Endgame, it is perfect. Even though despite the fact it does have a bit of a time travel paradox thing, but regardless of such though, it doesn't bother me too much about it, because looking back on it right now, on Disney Plus anyway, I absolutely had an enjoyable time watching the forms of Avengers Endgame. And as a result of that kind of stuff though, hopefully I can enjoy that film even more. Especially concerning this is without doubt one of the biggest events during the films event 2019, and it's also worth noting for is one of the best box office performance during the films event 2019 as a matter of fact. So anyway, so let's wrap it right there, and something tells me we do need to once again solve the actual Switch puzzles. So, oh boy, this might actually feel a bit confusing at first. And it's also worth noting for is about the fact that during the films event today, happy 5th anniversary of the release of Avengers Infinity War. In some cases though, one of those two-parter Thanos kind of films like this. Especially concerning that, well, those films are huge. Like, literally, these films are huge. And it's also epic in almost every way. Especially concerning about the fact that, I remember looking back on it though, during it when it first came out on the big screen back in 2018, and as a result of that kind of stuff though, I almost first thought it was actually gonna go pretty swell, but then until when it gets to the point about the fact that it's gonna be a to be continued syndrome. So as a result of that kind of stuff though, I was not expecting that. Whenever I first time I've watched it, during the films have been on the big screen, on the cinemas. So yeah, looking back on the films of Avengers Infinity War as well, I would say that the Avengers Infinity War is also very, very epic in almost every way, especially concerning about the fact that I was not expecting with that particular shocked ending during the forms of Avengers Infinity War. Well, I'm probably not going to be able to spoil things too much with the film, well, despite the fact that that film has been out for about, for 5 years now. So either way though, kudos to the films of both of those anniversary birthdays between both Avengers Infinity War for its 5th anniversary, and of course the 4th anniversary of the films of the Avengers Endgame. So either way though, because chances are, those films are awesome. So either way, also something worth noting for is about the fact that, relatively speaking, we actually had a first glance about the films of our first ever looked at of the films of 3 different cover arts, at least if you managed able to pre-order Sonic Origins Plus from the likes of the films of not only on the PlayStation 4, but also on PlayStation 5, alongside with Xbox Series X/S, or potentially Xbox One/Xbox One, mind you. And even especially noticeable with the Nintendo Switch versions, at least specifically if you managed able to order the physical copy of the films of Sonic Origins Plus. For the North American version, for what I've noticed, is that obviously it features the actual the Sega Genesis packaging style, very similar to the films of how it does in Sonic Mania Plus, almost. Although the noticeable difference is that I can assure you with the Sega Genesis packaged versions, as far as I'm aware, it almost inspires by the films of in the early days of Sega Genesis packages, which I will say, that was actually a pretty cool touch. And also there's the Japanese version, which as far as I'm aware, it features the exactly same official artwork from the likes of Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, and Amy, and then as a result, they actually got themselves a pretty unique background featuring the forms of these very wacky patterns and stuff like that. And on top of that, it did say Sonic Origins Plus, and on top of that, it did say the most famous hedgehog as the actual caption on the right in the world. So yeah, that's actually pretty swell. And on top of that, with the forms of players 1 through 2, or players 1 or 2 players, on the actual, the bottom left corner thingy right there, which I think is actually pretty cool, to able to bring that particular classic nostalgia thing back. And also, most notably out of them all though, it did say Mega Drive cartridge, and it does manage to feature a Mega Drive logo, at least the Japanese version of the logo, which I think is actually pretty cool. And finally, the European version, or the UK version, also features the exactly same premise as the Forms of Genesis cover with the reversible cover, except this time it does manage to feature the exactly same backgrounds based off from the likes of Sonic the Hedgehog 1's cover art, which I think is actually pretty swell. And on top of that, with the forms of the Mega Drive logo, with the forms of the UK version, and similar to the forms of how it does in the North American version's reversible cover, it did manage to able to feature the exactly same style as in one of those early days of the actual Mega Drive or Genesis packaging, with all that box arts and everything, because unlike Sonic Mania, Plus, to be more specifically, is almost entirely based off from the likes of the forms of the late days, during the forms of in the Mega Drive / Sega Genesis, box art covers, with the forms of the actual, the logos on the spine, or in the side of the cover, as opposed to the forms of the, on the top, or anything else like that. Even though it's a bit tricky to explain, because I haven't exactly touched upon Sonic Mania Plus. At least I've already completely done with the forms of the Switch version, mind you, whilst I haven't exactly gone back into the PlayStation 4 version or the Xbox One version for the sake of time, because obviously I just got distracted by the forms of playing, you know what I mean, Sonic Frontiers and all that stuff though. So either way though, that's what I can usually say about this for the most part. And something tells me we do need to get rid of those barrel Woolzels right here before we proceed, so... And kind of think about it, we can now able to actually take down those Heffalumps and Woolzels within no time flat, because obviously if as soon as you're able to do that button combinations right here, then we can instantly manage to able to KO them, so... And I think, fundamentally speaking, this will be the last time we're going to be seeing the actual battle system in Journey forms of in this particular version of the game, so everything else will be pretty much accounted for the sake of time. So anyways, let's get rid of this Tennis Woolzel right here. And now we can able to get ourselves... I'm not exactly sure what's the point about the forms of that particular transition right there. Although I'm thinking something tells me about the fact that we will come across into... Oh. Okay, I was not expecting that, but at least we got ourselves the hammer, so now we can able to smash things. Something like, I don't know about you, so I think something tells me we do need to get the lily pad to be activated, but either way though, because again, we do need to backtrack a lot, so yeah, I was expecting this much, so... Because originally, I was expecting if I was trying to able to split this into 2 parts, but I just want to get this game finished and done and over with before we move on to the next Let's Play. Because I think, similar to the forms of how it does it on Sonic Origins mission mode, this is going to be one of the longest videos so far, in terms of 2023 so far. So, yeah, I'll admit that right away that I do apologize for this point, guys. Especially concerning about the fact that, again, I just want to get this game finished before we move on to the next couple of Let's Plays up ahead, so... But that's what I can really ask for, so... Anyway, so, I'm not exactly sure why I came here, but I'm guessing it's because if you dare manage to use the hammer onto that particular section, I don't think that's gonna work. So, we do need the other item in order to be able to proceed for this point, so... Bro, regardless of everything else though, we did somehow rescue 4 friends so far, so now we need to rescue both Tigger and Pooh. Well, despite the fact that we never actually come across into Tigger's dream in this version, so yeah, I don't think this is gonna work, because obviously something tells me with that particular music jingle right there, that it does not seem able to be the case, so... Yeah, you know what I mean about the fact that with all that backtracking in this version, it just feels a bit... I don't know about you, I just wish that the game will run a bit faster, as opposed to like somewhat feels a bit sluggish or anything else like that. But it's just... I don't know. Anyway, so we'll just keep on activating the switch again. I'm sure enough we'll be back for this, I suppose. So either way, and of course I forgot to charge my phone, so I will do this by the end of this video anyway, so hopefully I'll get a chance. Oh, talking of which though, when it comes to related to Marvel, apparently though, that's one of the actors, Scarlett Johansson, she usually plays Black Widow, and she did say that she's done playing Black Widow. So, yeah, I guess that probably makes up for it, because apparently ever since in Journey Forms have been Infinity, no, not so much Infinity War, but I'm referring to as Endgame, basically she did manage to die, or one of the characters dies, during the forms of Avengers Endgame, so... Anyway, so now we've got ourselves a pickaxe, so now we can able to actually destroy something, specifically, something related to that particular, the thing, as we've already come across into earlier, so either way, yeah, once again, we have to backtrack a lot, and it's just pretty tedious, and yeah, there's nothing we can do in here, because I think it could be something related to water, so... Yeah, because I was totally right out all along, so... Oh, jeez, a lot of switches involved. At least, thankfully, we don't have to come back into the forms of that particular, the maze, switch labyrinth thingy right there. At least assuming, of course, I come across into it twice for whatever reason, so... I guess it makes it a little bit more sense because of all that, the letters that we did pick up, and it's kind of a shame that you can't able to pick up the, you know, the third item into your item inventory slot, because again, with the forms of that particular handheld limitations, so... And I do apologize for that particular awkward commentary for a bit there, because I, almost got my hiccups, so I definitely need to get rid of the hiccups at some point. And from here, now we can able to proceed to the next area. Although I would have liked able to go through that little pipe right there, just like Mario or Luigi, but of course Piglet can't do that, so... Because he was afraid of the forms of pretty much everything when it comes to like Heffalumps and Wurzels, including the darkness and anything else like that. I could imagine if Piglet will be encountering the Boo, or King Boo for that matter, and heck, even especially noticeable with PD Piranha as well, and heck, even most notably with the forms of, I would classify the same for the majority of those, Poltergeist ghosts from the likes of the Luigi's Mansion games. Gee, Piglet will easily be frightening. Imagine that. So anyway, I did not meant to activate the battle mode right there, but I have to do this anyway. So just in case, I can able to pick up a gem pod. So that way we can now able to actually do some more stuff during the forms within the outside portion. Because as far as I'm aware, I'm pretty sure we're basically done in the actual cavern section. So, oh jeez, we got to get away with that tennis Walsall right here. So, yeah, there's no point if we're able to actually activate that last brave face right there, because I would not recommend doing that. Especially because since I've already gone to the max level for the likes of the forms of, you know, activating the brave faces and all that stuff. Because obviously, as I said before, I'm not going to go show you guys the soft lock moment, so. Anyway, so let's just place the actual strawberry jam on here, similar to the forms of how it does in Pooh's Dream. So, obviously, to able to let those bees manage to hover around it. And from here, we were able to come across into another section, and I think we do need to able to get rid of that basic heffalump right there, in order to able to actually get something out of it or something. So, either way though, we're able to get rid of him no matter what. So here's the lily pad that we can now able to go through. Oh, there's that frog. So if we touch the frog, it will just lead us to that lily pad path. So that way we can now able to proceed. Now I believe something tells me that that particular lock right there, that'll be for later. Especially because we do need... I would classify for saying, oh jeez, that was close. Almost assuming if I was going to lose my health right there from that particular courage hard points, but at least I did somehow got my fast reaction timing. Unlike the forms of how it does it on the rapid stream, that I've always get cornered by the forms of certain enemy encounters, so... Either way, I think it's pretty self-explanatory for the most part, so thankfully there's no time limit or anything else like that, unlike the console version of Flooded Woods, that basically there was a time limit, assuming of course if you don't want to let Piglet's friends got scared by all kinds of heffalumps and Walsalls there, so yeah, I guess that probably explains it. So either way though, I can assure you this level is just a total cakewalk, at least assuming if you know what to do, so... Even though I will admit though right away I've almost got confused at points during the forms of this level because, again, my first time experiencing this, so here's Tigger right here, despite the fact that we've never come across into his dream. Well, I guess technically speaking that we've already played as him twice so far in this version of the game, and it seems I was right all along. It seems that we can't play as Pooh throughout the majority of this version of the game, again because of the handheld's limitations, so... Kind of a shame, honestly, but it has to be a thing, I suppose. Anyway, so we'll activate those 3 switches right here to create a bridge. So that way we can able to go ahead and go straight to the forms of Tigger's house and hopefully rescue Tigger in the process. And activate another bridge so that we can able to see what's up ahead. And yeah, we do need to activate another switch somehow. And straight to the point, we actually activate that switch there. And now we can able to help Tigger out, so... And I believe something tells me there's a, I would classify as saying the final item to pick up, because I think something tells me that with that particular rope we've already encountered, well... I'm not exactly sure why that sound effect was there, and I can't seem to move. There we go. Anyway, so now let's pick up, I would say, the final item in the game, which appears to be the pair of scissors. So, kind of weird endings off with the actual pair of scissors of all things. So, I guess that probably explains it, I guess. So, I can assure you that unlike the console version of the game, that I would say the final item pickup for your item inventory, which appears to be by the forms of either the carrot or a brush. No, I would say like... I don't know, a carrot, a brush, and especially noticeable with the other item I couldn't think about it on top of my head, because it's been about, I don't know about you, a whole entire month ago since I actually last experienced the console version of the game. So, relatively speaking though, I think that's all I can really say about this for the most part. So, Anyway, we've rescued Tigger, so all he needs left now is just Pooh, and it's just a matter of the fact that we need to backtrack once again and find our way to able to actually rescue him, so... Jeez, it's been like 50 minutes so far, for the sake of the forms of this entire stage, which... It might be a good thing or a bad thing, mind you. I would say a bad thing because obviously about the fact I somehow wasted my time to do a lot of backtracking moments. And speaking of which, there's Pooh right here. Oh no, Pooh is sleeping, so yeah, we definitely need to rescue him somehow. And by doing so, we need to do the last puzzle element in this entire version of the game, and that is that we need to put those 8 coins right onto those switches as far as I'm aware. So, and exponentially, that will be it, right? Well, as it turns out about the fact that, well, relatively speaking, I should probably save that conversation once we, you know, done with this puzzle right here. Assuming, of course, I do need to get a lot of arrangements to shove this acorn into some switches elsewhere. I don't know about you, I'm actually kind of getting bored of this level. I will say that out of all the actual, like, I don't know, levels of the game, in this case, in this version of the game, I will say it's probably my least favorite levels in the game, actually, because of, not only because it feels a bit long, but it's also about the fact that I really wish that there's more music in the background as opposed to, like, well, at least in the other dreams in this version of the game, does manage to have music and stuff like that, but of course it's because of the handheld's limitations. So, which I'll say I'll give my final thoughts of it though, once we get into the forms of the ending conclusion on this, so I guess that probably explains it why I prefer the console version a lot more than the handheld version, at least in my opinion. So, I mean, it does have its moments, but it's just, I just think that the console version is definitely a lot more superior. Which reminds me, I really wish if that game will be re-released on any other modern hardware, at least for the first time ever on the Microsoft Xbox systems, but of course, one of those gaming companies has been shut down, so yeah, it seems kind of sucks. Oh well, it's not the end of the world personally, because after all, that, you know, we've already experienced some very good titles in 2003, like, you know, like Mario Kart Double Dash, Mario Party 5, alongside with Mario Golf Toadstool Tour, and especially noticeable with the forms of Sonic Heroes, despite it came out in Japan anyway. Well, usually we have to wait a game until where we get the English version until 2004, and on top of that, with the forms of I would classify for saying Kirby Air Ride for the GameCube, and on top of that, Warrior World, and especially noticeable with the very first WarioWare game, of course, WarioWare Inc. Minigame Mania, or Mega Micro Games on the Game Boy Advance, and especially noticeable with the forms of The Simpsons Hit and Run, SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom, at least specifically the console version as far as I'm aware, at least handheld version was also included on there as well, and I guess that's all I can think about it. So, even though it does have some worse games on there as well, in 2003, like, I would say one of those games I was heard about, which appears to be Drake of the 99 Dragons, which I'm sure that I'll let Tiana will mention more about it, and so when she goes back onto the forms of Kirby's Eternal Dreamland Deluxe for sure, for Megalo Albalog. So either way, all these friends have been gathered and... What the heck? How did that talking dog come back? I've already defeated you twice so far on the Game Boy Advance version. Oh, wait a second, something tells me he's gonna have a rematch for the final time. Oh, jeez, I was not to see that coming. So, relatively speaking, before we end off the actual flooded words, the final level in the game, we do need to take on the forms of the talking door for the third and roughly the final time on this version of the game. Or technically the 6th time as the forms of how it does it during the forms of our Let's Play channel so far. So, yeah, kind of crazy, kind of thinking about it. So of course, since we've already learned all of those brave faces in the game, so let's go ahead and take on the talking door for the final time. So either way, time to able to do, you know, a few more button combinations, and that's presumably that'll be about it. So, and there goes the talking door for the final time. see ya, and never see the light of day for the sake of time. So, for the third and final time. So here we go on to the final section in Journey Forms within the Flooded Woods, and basically it kind of reminds me of the forms of trying to go for a serious amount of enemy encounters on the console version, although, for whatever reason, it's just a simple straight line. So as a result of that kind of stuff though, I just wish there was actually a different shape to it. Well, I guess it's because of the handheld's limitations, I guess, so I think something tells me we will come across into certain enemy encounters as far as I'm aware, including the actual mirror right there. It's been a very long while since we actually come across into that mirror enemy since Journey Forms within, I would say in Rapid Stream or something. So either way, let's go ahead and take care of this road sweeper Heffalump right there. And I believe next up it will be Tennis Wozzle. Yep, sure enough it is. And then hopefully we're able to come across into ourselves Granosaurus, just like in the console version. So, yeah, let's just see what happens there. So we reach to the dead end right there. And, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? The tree was the final boss? Really? Really? Oh, I get it, because of the memory's limitations or somewhat. But how weird is that? Especially concerning I almost first thought we will come across into Granosaurus or something. So, Piglet bravely frightened away the Granosaurus, despite he was not here. He saved his friends. Piglets are just as brave as tigers. Yes, it was brave of you. Indeed, you were very brave, Piglet. You are a hero. Gee, I hope that nothing has happened to Christopher Robin. Just then, Christopher Robin came to meet his friends. Christopher Robin! Where were you? I've looked everywhere for you. Don't worry, we're all safe, thanks to Piglet. You see, Piglet, you can be brave. I just followed your advice and learned how to be brave when I was in a scary dream. You are wonderfully brave, Piglet. And now I have a surprise for all of you. Some honey, a delicious breakfast, and don't worry, Pooh Bear, there is honey too. And so it was, our little friend Piglet had become a hero to all of his friends. And that's how the narration's gonna bring us into. So, it seems kind of weird, we never come across into a credit sequence or something like that. So, I believe something tells me about the fact that, well, suffice to say, that's pretty much done for this point. So let me quickly go ahead and... Oh, you kidding me? There is a Bravest of them all challenge in Flooded Woods. Oh gosh, we're not done, guys. We are not done with the game yet. So, gee, I was not expecting that. Okay, we'll go for that anyway. So, gee, it could be an hour of this recording session for sure. So I'm hoping I can able to be as quick as I possibly can. So, yeah, it seems that we're not done with the Bravest of them all challenge, guys, because I was not expecting that version of Flooded Woods does contain it. Because I can assure you the console version doesn't have that either, so yeah, I was not expecting that, huh? Okay, so you know what that means? It's time to able to do some more backtracking, and on top of that, hopefully we're not gonna able to come across into that stupid glitch that I've already come across into earlier during the Phones Within Rapid stream at some form or another. But wish me luck, I suppose, because obviously I do definitely need it. So, but I'm really hoping I just want to get this game finished and done and over with. Although I'm sure enough though about the fact that I can assure to you with the Bravest of them all challenges is entirely optional, at least as far as I'm assuming so anyway. So, anyways, let's go ahead and get rid of this basic Woolsall. So, I think this will be the true definition of the final time we're going to be doing Bravest of them all challenges. So, I can't believe this is the 5th Bravest of them all challenges in this version. So, yeah, because unlike the console version of the game, there's only like, what, 6 of them? So, yeah, I was expecting the 7th one to be on the console version, and oh, look at that. No switches in this particular room. Thank God for that. So no need to deal with the forms of that particular... Oh, wait a minute. I think something tells me about the fact that I will still be able to come across into that particular... Oh, God. I don't know about you guys, but I just want to able to just realize that... Well, I suppose I should probably give you my final thoughts of the game, actually. Well, assuming, of course, once we've gone to the halfway point, in terms of bravest of them all challenge, in journey forms of this entire level. And also, the brave face thing is now completely gone, because obviously we've already scared off every single Heffalumps and Woolsels on the last section, despite Granosaurus has not appeared during an in-game. I'm guessing it because of the Game Boy's limitations, so... And geez, there's a lot of lag going on around here, so I won't expect to be too surprising, so... Oh my god, this entire dream is exhausting! Or to be more specifically, this entire level is exhausting! Although to be fair, like I said before, if you get the physical copy of the game, at least you can able to complete this level on the go. But still, it just feels a bit tiring, to me anyway, so I've got nothing to say. Anyway, so let's just get rid of these guys here, and just need to make sure if I need to double check, and sure enough, I think we actually did miss something at the very least, so... Hi. Anyway, so let me go ahead and double check on this particular section, because there are quite a few sections they don't seem to able to have certain Heffalumps and Woolsels around here, so... Sure enough, they don't have them, so I guess that's fine, I guess. Okay, so at the very least we're done with that section at least, so... Anyway, so let's... I'm as well able to get this out of the way, so I can able to actually just to finish the actual Let's Play proper. That's while I'm actually going to be able to still scare off those Heffalumps and Woolsels, and at the same time... trying to able to go for this very annoying section. I will say the most annoying section in this level to me though is this section, because I can never figure out how on earth am I supposed to able to solve this, especially if I was gonna continue proceedings for this point, and okay, I guess no need for those switches. Okay. Well, I suppose those switches are pretty much useless in this particular part. Okay. I was not expecting that either, so thank the Lord. Anyway, so we'll just get rid of these road sweeper Heffalumps there. So yeah, let's get to my final thoughts of this version of the game. Now I can totally see why that this version of the game is often considered to be the black sheep of the series, to me anyway. Well, first off, I hate when you're able to actually do like multiple things at a time because of the forms of, well, not only because of the switch blockage, but it's also about the fact that you have to do with the forms of like, well, aside from the forms of power factor, if I was trying to able to proceed at one point, even though it's a bit tricky to explain, but you have to do with so much when it comes to likely doing with a lot of backtracking involved, and because of that, it's way more tedious than the forms of how it does it on the console version. At least on the console version, you do have yourselves your true memorization to able to know the exact locations you're about to be entering into, which honestly I don't mind about it too much on the console version, because I'll get to that in a moment later. Secondly, besides the forms of the exactly identical enemy encounters on the console version, and also with new types of enemies you encounter, like for instance with the forms of barrel, Woolsels, and a mirror, there's no any other new types of enemy types in this game, which to me is just such an incredible letdown. You start to get bored, you might able to come across into exactly the same types of enemies you encounter with, and I wish there was more variety when it comes to Heffalumps and Woolsels variety. Like seriously, then really that much of a challenge. Thirdly, I'm not a fan of how the depth perception works in this game. Like, relatively speaking though, just like the console version, you can still able to actually do like item inventory system. However though, I will admit though right away, I'm pretty much used to with the 3-item system inventory system on the console version a lot more. Because the thing is with the 2-item system, you know, with the actual inventory thing, it just feels kind of like, I don't know, waste of opportunity, again because of the handheld's limitations, but even doesn't matter to me then, but as a result for that kind of stuff, that's what I can really say about it. But there's one thing that really bugs me about this version of the game, however, is its audio presentation. Like, this game's soundtrack is incredibly forgettable for two reasons. For one, there's barely any soundtrack at all, at least in some sections. Like, as I mentioned this before about the fact that with Flooded Woods in mind, like, there's gonna be plenty of times when you might hear the actual raindrops you get, like... yeah, like that. Although secondly, although there is music playing, in certain dreams anyway, I feel like the actual theme songs are incredibly dull. Again, it's probably because the Game Boy Advance's limitations. And to that, I say it was just pretty dumb. Like, for instance, with the forms of Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories, these music are pretty incredible. I mean, graphically, yeah, it looks pretty impressive for the Game Boy Advance standards, but I will admit though right away though, I do believe that the console version is a lot more nicer to look at, especially because, you know, you see every single environment in 3D, and on top of that, there's no need to worry about the actual weird depth perception issues, and it's just, well, gee, no wonder why I'm probably not able to get the physical copy of this game after all, because, well, and finally, most notably out of them all though, is the lack of the save system, because unlike the console version where you get a memory card, and every time if you complete certain parts throughout the dream, and then basically it just auto-saves, whilst in this version, as I said before, you need to rely on the password feature, and it's just, it's a bit convoluted, I'm telling you. It's way too overly, convoluted and all that stuff, which, again, I might be biased when it comes to the forms of preferring games on the console, because obviously it just makes things a little bit more nicer to be able to see what really happens there. Although, it's also worth noting for is that, yeah, this version of the game also does not have any voice acting in there at all. Well, aside from a few grunts when it comes to likely for, I would say for both Piglet and Tigger most likely, when it comes to like, you know, getting scared and stuff like that. So, yeah, at the end of story, I just feel like I was a bit disappointed with this version. Although, it is okay to be able to actually try the game for yourself, but I will admit though right away, I was very, very, very disappointed with this version of the game. So hopefully, once we get into later Let's Plays, it should be a lot more funner, and on top of that, I can totally see why that we're actually getting a lot of lower views from this playthrough, because of the forms of how the fact that this particular version is very underwhelming. And it's also pretty weird that the talking door was actually going to be brought back in during the forms of Bravest of the Mole challenges, as far as I just realized. So, pretty weird able to actually have that in there. And I believe something tells me if you dare manage to able to go ahead and take care of the talking door first, and then you realize you can't able to escape. So, yeah, it's probably best to able to save the talking door for last, because obviously that you will end up getting to the another soft lock moment. Well, assuming of course if you manage able to pause the game and such. But yeah, that's as far as I can say about the forms of you know, Piglet's big game on the Game Boy Advance. I mean, it just feels a bit lackluster in comparison to the, you know, the superior console version on the PlayStation 2 or Nintendo GameCube. So if you got your money's right, I highly recommend the console version, and I think if I were you, you might as well able to skip over the handheld version, because it seems a bit, I don't know, like a watered down version of the Piglet's big game, which, either way though, that's what I can say about it. Plus, there's no movie clips on there either, well, I guess because of the memory's limitations. So, not only why I keep on mentioning limitations, because, well, it seems kind of like a common word when it comes to comparing to console versions, to handheld equivalents, or versions for that matter. So, yeah, that's as far as I can say about it. Anyway, so I think we've almost done here, so it's just, well, let me quickly double check on the actual scrolling bit. And also I just feel like that the actual movement feels a bit slower in this version, which I'll admit though right away though is not as pleasant as it seems, so. But yeah, you can totally see why that this particular part is by far the longest part throughout the entire 2023 so far. Which, yeah, it seems maddening, I'm telling you. It's way too maddening. Like, I almost assume with the mission mode in Sonic Origins will be expected to be twice as long, But as it turns out with this, it does seems to be a little bit more of a problematic, at least I feel like. So anyways, let's get rid of these last few enemies, and they all just walking straightly to the left, and there's only 3 enemies in here. Anyway, there we go. We've finally done. We've finally done with Piglet's Big Game on the Game Boy Advance, and also we got a new password, and also I realized there's no music in the background. How odd Ableton endings are for this. So, I guess that pretty much summarized the forms of this game in a nutshell. It just feels underwhelming to me. So, I'm also able to give the console version a score because I just feel like it. So, on the GameCube/PlayStation 2 versions of Piglet's Big Game, I'll give it around an 8 out of 10. I'll give this version of Piglet's Big Game on the Game Boy Advance like roughly about 5.5 out of 10. It definitely takes a few steps forward in terms of progressioning, but the actual issues are so glaring to ignore. Also, I just realized Luigi's name was actually on there, despite it's like a different person. So, yeah, thank you guys so much for watching our Let's Play of Piglet's Big Game, and let me tell you, I was exhausted on this version. Like, I will admit though right away, I'm probably not going to come back to this game ever again, because let me tell you, it just feels kind of, well, mad to me. Like, not the worst game I ever played, but Jesus Christ, does this version get boring? Like, I know for a fact that a lot of people prefer the console version a bit more, but that's all I can say about it. So this is me, Maxi, here, from the likes of the Maxi Toys, and until then, join Tiana tomorrow for more continuation of Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe, so that's something you guys may be looking forward to, especially she's now on to the final point in Megalore Epilogue, and that's as far as I can say about it. So, yeah, this credit scene is just meh. Anyways, I'll see you guys at some point soon. Later, fellas.